All right, you guys, like I said, thank you so very much for joining us today at our January's virtual bariatric meetup. My name is April Williams. I am the co-founder and the co-host of East to West WLS. We have podcasts, we have Instagram live events. We are just here to support the bariatric community with humor, humility, and honesty. So thank you so very much for joining us today. I started these meetups when COVID first hit. I was, I think maybe 6 or 7 months post-op, and I realized that I was not getting the support that I needed to find success after my own procedure. And I was looking for a support group, and I was going to start hosting them in my hometown of Gig Harbor, Washington. And then COVID struck. And I am a dean of students and a teacher at an online school, and I was very familiar with Zoom. And I just thought, you know what, I could probably actually do this, you know, via Zoom. So I just started hosting them, and just people exactly like you just came for the support. And that was actually where I met Jason. He and I became fast friends. We realized our conversations were really meaningful. And that was kind of how East to West started. So we are thrilled to be doing what we're doing. We absolutely love supporting this community. We love connecting with you because through our conversations, we're helping ourselves and we feel like we're helping everybody else. So it's just a really great community. We're very happy of it. So people are continuing to come in, and that's wonderful. Thank you so very much. I'm going to pop over here to the next slide. At least I think I'm going to, there we go, pop over to the next slide. So there's a picture of me. Miss Becca, I don't know if she's in here yet or not. She's going to be kind of our co-host, co-facilitators today. Natalie is also going to be our co-host and co-facilitator. And then we have Maddie, Wendy, and Kristin, who are joining us today as guests. I will just ask if you guys have any questions at all, you can go ahead and write them in the chat, or do feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question and then mute yourself again. Just if we keep ourselves muted, it really helps us understand everybody's questions. So we definitely want this to be an interactive experience, not just us talking at you, because it's not what this is all about. But we do understand that there will be lots of questions that will come up, and we absolutely welcome them. So how we kind of have this day structured is each presenter is going to have about 15 minutes, and they have some amazing content to share. And I forgot about this. Before we get into this, I always like to start our virtual bariatric meetups just sharing our mission and our ground rules. So kind of why we do what we do, and how we're hoping that the day will unfold. So our goal, like I said before, is just to support this community with humor, humility, and honesty. We really want to destigmatize and normalize weight loss surgery or bariatric surgery. We want to grow this community for patients because we are patients. And we want to make sure that there's a safe place online where supporters of us can go and find out information about what we are experiencing. And really, we just want to share ideas and experiences that are going to add value to our lives. So that's our mission. Our ground rules are pretty simple. We're going to always assume best intent. We're going to share what you are comfortable with sharing publicly. This is not a place for selling anything. It's just a place for information. If we notice any nudity or isms going on in the chat or in the background, we'll just remove you from the event. And just always keep in mind, this is not medical advice. Always consult with your doctors for anything related to your mind, body, and soul. So if there are does anybody have any questions about that? I'm not looking at the chat. Natalie, are there any questions about that?
No, we'll get to know each other.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Like I said, I'm off my game. I'm missing my 2 screens here. Okay, this is something I am so very excited to be able to share with this group. East to West secured our very first sponsorship. We posted it on our feed, and I actually went there yesterday live. I picked up my absolutely delicious juice, and we just want to give a local company a shout out. They believe in what we do, they believe in our community, and they're very excited to support us as we grow. So we just want to publicly thank them for their support. I've been a patron of Gather Juice for probably 2 years now, really ever since we moved to Gig Harbor. I absolutely love it. It really is something that I use every day in my life. I love their juices. They've got wonderful products. Their fresh food is amazing. And I'm just so very excited about their partnership with us. So if you live locally, I absolutely encourage you to stop by their adorable shop in Tacoma. You can purchase the juice or just stop by and let them know that you appreciate their support of us. And if you don't live locally, if you just head over to their Instagram page and send them a message and just say, hey, I was at the virtual bariatric meetup today. I really appreciate that this support is available. I understand you sponsor them. Thank you for helping them grow. That would mean the world to us at East to West, and it would certainly mean the world to them. They're amazing humans, and I'm very excited to share their story with us in this community, because how they came to create Gather Juice is an enlightening and nutritious story. So they're just really, really wonderful people. So if you don't mind, show them some love and support today when we're done with our meetup. Okay, down to the good stuff. Our agenda for today. Wendy Rawlings is going to start us off by talking about habits and routines. And then Kristin Willard is really going to share with us her 4-step process for bariatric meal prep, which is phenomenal. And then we will finish up our morning or our afternoon with Miss Maddie. She is a genius at transforming our old favorite recipes into bariatric-friendly ones. I don't know if you guys saw my story, maybe it was a week or two ago. I made her air-fried cod recipe and her Cheddar Bay biscuit recipe with Carb Quick. Holy shit, changed my life. Absolutely amazing. So we're so very excited to learn her tips and tricks and her secrets today. And then we're just going to wrap it up by reflecting on the learning that we did today. We're going to share some community resources with you, and then we're going to talk about our very next meetup. So it'll be a really, really great day. And we're going to shoot to be done right at 11 o'clock. I will hang out for maybe about 15 minutes if you would just like to connect. And if any of our guests would like to stay on afterwards, you are more than welcome to do so as well. But that's kind of that'll be the flow for today. So are you guys ready to dive in? And again, now I can't see the chat. Are there any questions, any comments?
Not so far. We're just introducing each other and saying hi. So there's lots of people here. We're really excited.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, I'm so ready. Miss Wendy, are you ready to go?
Ready to go. Yeah.
All right. I will. Yep. I got your slides ready to go, and when you're just ready, you just let me know.
Yeah, I'll tell you in advance. So this is me. This is a little bit about me. Mostly just know that I'm part of our group. I'm part of our tribe. I've had the same feelings, same experiences that I mean, we don't all have the same ones, but very similar to yours. And I had the surgery in 2005. It was Roux-en-Y, and I lost a ton of weight. I kept all but 10 pounds off. My body really wanted that 10 pounds, and I just didn't want to fight it. And it's been great. It's, literally changed my world. So welcome. And if you have any questions, write them in the chat. We'll let Natalie curate those, and we can, and if you have questions as we go on, it's just what April said. And I really think April and Jason have done the world a good service and us a good service by creating this for us. So thank you both. And I can't wait to hear Maddie and Kristin too. I'm really excited. So let's start. Go ahead and advance it, April. So when you think of willpower, there's a book that I use, and I want you to write the name down if you want to. It's called The Willpower Instinct. It's by Kristin McGonigal. And the other one that I'm going to use today is James Clear, The Atomic Habits. And those two are life-changing books. But it took me a year to buy Kristin's book. McGonigal's book, because it had the word willpower in it. I couldn't stand the name, The Willpower Instinct. When I think of willpower, and most of us think of it as something we feel guilty about, that we don't have enough of, that we feel shamed about. And that's sort of the background music that we play all the time. And so I want to get rid of that word. And she really gets rid of that word, even though she uses it in her title. I don't know why, but she breaks it into 3 important parts. I will, I won't, and I want. And these are if we're going to start changing our habits and establish routines, those are the really important words that we want to start giving to ourselves. And if we break our thoughts down and our feelings down into I will, I won't, and I want, then we're really going to get somewhere. So I'm going to start with the quote at the bottom: to say no when you need to say no, and yes when you need to say yes. You need another power, the ability to remember what you really want. To exert self-control, you need to find your motivation when it matters. So the I want power is where I want to start for a minute. we can't establish a routine or a new habit unless we know what it is that we want. So reflect on your reason for having bariatric surgery or wanting to have it, planning to have it. And what is it that you want? What do you want from that? And that's the thing that you want to write down. And I'm going to tell you a story in a minute about a client that I had who just, until she could figure that out, she didn't go anywhere. And once she did, nothing could stop her. So what do you want? Who do you want to become? Who do you want to change your identity into? My sister she will tell you she has an addictive personality and she's had several cross addictions. And one day she said, I realized I saw myself as an addict. And so my identity was addict. And when I put the word recovering in front of addict, all of a sudden my identity shifted and what I wanted changed. So instead of being an addict, sugar addict or food addict, if you say I'm recovering addict, that changes everything. And it changes the way we look at ourselves and our world and our choices. So then once we know what we want, then we know we say I will when we want to reach our goal, and we say I won't when we want to distance ourselves from that behavior that wasn't helping us. My sister, again, as a recovering addict, she'll say things to herself instead of I won't do that. She'll say, I don't do that anymore. And that's been super powerful for her. And it's been a great tool for me to know about too, because I used to do that. I used to eat that sugar, or I used to have that candy without even thinking about it. And now I just don't do that anymore. That's not part of what I want.
And Wendy, I'll just tell you, in my work with you, this has really been transformational for me because, right, when you challenged me to really think about the person that I wanted to be, not wanted to become, like, well, who do you want to be, in this moment? And I was like, well, I want to be a healthy person.
That's right.
And you just asked me, well, what does a healthy person do? And it was like, oh, shit, right? Then I really had to make this list about, oh my gosh, it's going to take a lot of work to become a healthy person. And those three, I will, I won't, and I want, really change the game, because when a decision comes to you, and if you are very clear on who you want to be as a person, who you are, right? If a bag of Cheetos comes my way, is that going to help me be a healthy person? No, right? I don't want that. I want to be a healthy person. A healthy person would choose something else. So it's a way that it's a tool that we can use to really help us in that decision-making process as things come at us. Very powerful.
So the bag of Cheetos is an I won't. And it's not that I don't want it. I don't like it. It's just I won't do it because that's not who I am. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, next slide. So I want to talk about the neurology of the way our brain works. And one thing that we have this little midbrain that has an amygdala and a hippocampus. And the amygdala is sort of our early warning center. It's there to protect us. And because most of us have a relationship and attachment with food, it wants to protect that attachment. Instead of attaching to people or attaching to healthier foods, it wants to protect that attachment. And so we have come up unconsciously with 5 ways that we sabotage ourselves. And these are the ways I've worked with bariatric patients now for 14 years, and these are my lists as well as everyone else's. And the flavor of them is different, but here are the 5. The first is entitlement. I should be able, and if you use the word should and shouldn't, you're dealing in entitlement. So I should be able to eat that thing. Normal people eat that thing. I shouldn't have to, and then fill in the blank. So that's the first one. I'm entitled to eat this way. The second one is I just don't want to. I'm not motivated. I don't care. And we all get it in those spaces. And then you want to go back to I will, I won't, and I want. And that will help that motivation piece come back online, because we all go through that low motivation. The next one is fear. I'm afraid I'm going to succeed. I'm afraid I'm actually going to be successful, or I'm afraid I won't be. I'm afraid I'll gain the weight back. And what will people say? What will they think about me? What will I think about me? It'll just be another diet that didn't work. The next one is power and control. And it's not control freak control. That's really important to understand. It's just, I want to make my environment safe. And so I want to make my own decisions. I don't want someone else. I don't want the book. I don't want my doctor telling me what I can and can't have. And then the last one is protection. That extra weight protects me from being hit on, it protects me from hitting on someone else, because I just don't want to do that. I don't know what to do because of my past experiences. So these sabotages come out of our past, and they really affect us on a very unconscious level. And they, a lot of times, are there to try to protect us. But again, we aren't the people that we used to be when we created those sabotage patterns in our lives. So April, next slide.
Yep. And before I head on, I'll just let you know, Wendy, this is resonating with people. The chat is on fire. People are going to go, oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I do this. I didn't realize this.
Oh, good.
Wonderful. Yes. And we are recording this, you guys. You can revisit this forever. So this is a resource that's available for you to go back to and really, spend more time reading, pausing, and reflecting.
Right. I am giving you about 3 months worth of work in 15 minutes. So we're good. And April, I just realized my timer paused. So please, I think
I got you, lady. You got 14 minutes.
Okay, good. So neuroscience, this is, if you think of our brain as the way we watch highways, freeways being built, you'll be about right. The first time we do something, it's like we build a little cow path through the underbrush. And then the more we do it, the more pathway we have. So that first time and the fifth time and the sixth time, really hard. We have that weak pathway going. The more we do it, then we start to pave it. We get the dirt road, and then we pave the dirt road. And then it becomes a two-way paved road. And then if we use that pathway a lot, our brains are very efficient, and they don't like to spend energy thinking. And so they do something called myelinize. So they myelinize the path, and that's like paving it into a super freeway. So we go from one spot to another, just, faster than we can even think about it. And so right now we have a myelinized road to a behavior. So when I think about a donut, I'm going to take my myelinized path over to an outcome, which is to go to the donut store or to, do whatever. And that's the pathway we want to break up. Those pathways don't ever completely disappear, but just like roads that we don't use now, grass can grow in them, and the pavement can break up a little bit. The path is still there, but it's not as usable. So we want to consciously build that new pathway to that new goal. And that's what habits and routines do for us. And so in the beginning, we have to think about it. It doesn't become automatic. And if you've had the surgery, you know what a tremendous amount of thought you had to do. It was almost a full-time job, jumping through the hoops to get the approvals and the testing and all that stuff. So it's that same amount of care that you put into it, that you have to put into creating a new habit until the road gets paved. And the more you do it, the more paving happens. But here's the thing. What I'm noticing is that post-surgery, it's for women, it's usually about six to 9 months. For men, it's a little bit longer out. Post-surgery, we start going back to our old roads because we quit putting that attention, that thought onto that new way of living. And that's where we kind of go off, get bucked off the horse and have to get back on. So it's super important to realize that a habit, and we'll talk about how long it takes to form, but the habits that we have are not going to disappear overnight. And that's not 21 days. It's nothing like that. Those things are carved in pretty deep. So it's something we have to think about for 2 years, minimum 5 years. The research is showing us that 5 years gives us 15% relapse rate. So 85% success. So it's a conscious effort. It takes brain power, and I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. So if we want to be successful, we have to think, and we have to plan, we have to do. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and Wendy, I will just say, for again, the work that you have helped me do, understanding that my old pathways, my old habits are never going away, is very powerful for me. Because again, if I know that and I recognize that I'm getting back on my old highway, I know it isn't anything, there's nothing wrong with me. That's normal, right? So I don't need to beat myself up over that. I just need to go, oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm going down that old pathway and I don't want to get on that road. I want to get on my healthy road. I want to get on this pathway that's going to lead me to the identity that I want, right? That lets me know that I am living the life I want to live. It's so important for me. It was very important for me to realize that there's nothing wrong with me, that my brain is working as it should, and that I'm doing the work of weight loss surgery.
Exactly. And our default, because of our population, our default is guilt and shame. So our default is, oh, I did
Yep.
something wrong. No, no, you did what the brain is supposed to do. The brain is supposed to be efficient and it looks for the easiest path.
Yes.
Until the new path becomes the
Yes.
easiest path, it's going to want to go to the other path. So just keep working on the new one
Yep.
and make it the new old one. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Next slide. So this is the part of your brain, and I thought this was super interesting, where the I will, I want, and I won't live. So the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, is up at the top there, where the green circle is. And so the I will lives on the left side, which is the side of reason and verbal and logic and memory. The I won't is the right side, which is the creative, it's the emotional. And then I want lives at the very front on both sides. So that's just where it's located. I thought that was kind of fun to know. So next slide. So this is the money talk that we're going to have here. James Clear, in his Atomic Habits, which I highly recommend reading over and over again, organizes change into 3 layers. And I'm just gonna just veer off for just a second. The change process happens in 5 steps. The first step is pre-contemplative, where, something's wrong, but I'm not really sure what it is. And then there's contemplative, where, oh yeah, okay, it's me, I get it. And I'm not ready to do anything about it. And then there's preparation. Yeah, something's wrong, it's me, and I'm getting ready. I'm doing research. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do different, but I'm not ready to change yet. And then the 4th step is actually making the change. And then the 5th step is maintaining the change that you've made. And you can all kind of figure out where you are in that change process. But the point of this is maintenance, which is what we all want. We all want to maintain our weight loss. We all want to be healthy and achieve our potential. That maintenance, that uses a different set of skills than the other 4 do. Maintenance requires an identity shift. And the reason I brought that up is because this habit formation happens quickest when we have an identity shift and we actually change from the inside out rather than the outside in. So traditional change happens by looking at outcomes, which is that last layer, by process, and then we change our identity. And if we can go and we can actually change on any of these layers, we can change outcomes. We can say, okay, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, and that's an outcome. Or I'm going to measure myself, and my measurements are going to shrink, and that's an outcome. Or I'm going to run 5 miles a day, and that's an outcome. Anything you can measure in a concrete way is an outcome. And we are organized as human beings around measuring outcomes. And most weight loss programs are organized on measuring outcomes. So what Claire talks about, and I love, is what if we change identity? And that goes back to that I want power. What if we start there and say, this is who I'm going to be instead of this other person? And so this is where my story comes in. I have a client, or she has graduated therapy, who is a physician, and her identity was, I'm a doctor. And because she had that identity, I'm a doctor, therefore I can eat what I want to eat, because nobody tells the doctor what they can eat and what they can't eat. And I'm entitled to do that without any consequences. And so she was gaining and gaining and gaining, and she was not able to do the things she wanted to do. And so it took us about 9 months to restructure her identity from I'm a doctor into something else. She tried on a bunch of other identities. She really fought the giving up the I'm a doctor, therefore I can do what I want identity. That took a while, but she did. And we tried a bunch of other identities on for her. She never could find the right one until one day she realized that before she was a doctor, she played soccer. And she played it in college. And when she started med school, she didn't have time to do that. So she gave that up. So we talked about those were happy times. Those were productive, healthy times for her. So I said, well, who were you back then? And she thought about it and she said, I was an athlete. And then she says, no, I am an athlete. And I'm just not acting like an athlete, but who I am is an athlete. And so when she started thinking of herself as an athlete, the I wills and the I won'ts fell straight into place. And she didn't resent having to take the dogs for a walk in the rain because that's what an athlete did. And she didn't resent choosing to give up wine for dinner, second glass of wine, sometimes first, most times first glass of wine, because athletes wouldn't do that. And so as soon as she said, I'm an athlete, everything else fell into place. So the trick is finding who you are, because that informs your process. That changes the process that you do life with. So if my identity is I'm a sugar addict, then my process is I have to stay away from sugar because I will trigger my addiction. And so my outcome is I never want to eat sugar again. And you can see the trap I'm setting for myself right there, because I'm going to eat sugar. It's just going to happen. But if I say I'm a recovering addict and I realize that sugar is bad for me, my process is, okay, what's going to be my safe thing to do here? And maybe I'm not even really a recovering sugar addict as my identity. Maybe I am the healthiest person I can become. Or maybe I'm a healer and I have to be healthy in order to do my job. That's even a deeper identity. So you want to go into that deepest part of you. And if I'm a healer, I'm going to put in a whole lot more of I will and I won't than if I'm a recovering sugar addict. So you want to figure out why you are who you are and just keep going deeper and deeper until you get to that thing that resonates so strongly in you that you can't find a deeper spot to go. And that's what's going to motivate you to change your process. And then your outcome changes automatically. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. So
yep, the chat it's resonating, Wendy. Resonating.
Okay. I love you guys. I'm glad you get it. Okay. So next slide. So how long does it take to form a new habit? Interesting story that it takes 28 days to form a new habit actually came from a doctor who was not studying habits, who noticed that his patients, he was doing surgeries on them when they had a face change or a limb change or something. He noticed that it took them 21 days to actually acclimate to the change. So he thought, I wonder if it takes 21 days to change. And he started observing in himself, and he noticed that it took about 21 days, so 3 weeks, before he acclimated to something. When he thought about it every day, then he kind of got used to it. And then he said, so his original writing was, it takes at least 21 days to form a habit. And that somehow got transmitted into 28 days to form a new habit. So it's not true, partly because you have to kill the old habit. And so someone studied it. Philippa Lawley at the University of London studied this and found that she, depending on what the habit was, and she let her subjects choose their habit, and some were easy and some were harder. And so what she found is that it can take up to 8 months of really rewiring your brain before it becomes automatic enough that you don't have to think about it every single moment. We know from recovery literature that it takes 5 years to make sure that you don't relapse. Well, that you have an 85% chance of keeping your habit, that you've myelinized your roads in your brain. So I think that's important so that you can keep a realistic expectation of yourself. Next slide.
And Wendy, I will just let everybody in here know, when Wendy told me this, I spent about 5 minutes swearing at Wendy. I think I did some voodoo. I think I was, because when she told me, well, it's going to take about 5 years. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I went through surgery so this would just be done. It was, but the good news is that those 5 years are going to be the best 5 years of my life, because all the other years I was struggling and I was trying to figure it out. And now I have a tool, and now I have a toolbox filled with things that it's going to help me go forward. And if I know these numbers, then I have something to shoot for. So if you're like me and you hear these numbers and you want to punch walls or swear out loud, you're not alone, but we can use that knowledge to help us make massive gains in our life. And
the truth is, those 5 years are going to go by. You know, we're going to, in 5 years, we're going to be 5 years older. And so what are we going to do with those 5 years? That's really the bottom line. So how are we going to use them? Thank you.
Just about 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I thought, since we're working with nutritionists, we talk about it in the form of a recipe. And when those of you that have power and control as sabotages, realize that not having a plan is a plan. So we have a plan, whether we acknowledge it and realize it or not. So this is a way to create a new habit that's been super successful for people. First one is you start small, make it easy. Don't do the big weight loss thing that we're used to doing. The second one is that we're looking for gradual improvement. Think couch to 5K instead of getting out there and running the race without any prep at all. Break your habits into chunks, chunk it out. If you're going to do couch to 5K, you're going to start by walking, and then you're going to gradually increase it. And then you're going to finally get to your 5K, but you chunk it down and you don't do the same type of workout every day. Same thing with your meals. Then when you slip, get them back on track. The problem is that we have is when we slip, we want to go to the next Sunday or the next Monday, and we just eat our way into that spot. Don't do that. You can slip once, but don't slip twice. And that's kind of the way to think about it. Get back right the next second you're back on track, and then be patient with yourself. It's a 5-year process. So you don't have to do it in a week. So do it at a pace you can sustain, but just gradually push yourself forward on that pace. Okay, next slide. So I'm a great believer that if we have a routine, then we have a foundation. And so decide, take an hour for yourself. We are people who take care of everybody else, or we avoid. So take an hour for yourself and write down what needs to be in your routine. Keep it realistic. Again, you can add stuff, you can take it out. It's not going to be your finished product. Then if you don't write it down, a goal not written is just a wish. So it has to be written down, has to be posted where you're going to see it and remember it. Be consistent with it. Be prepared to do it. Make it fun. I have 2 songs I listen to every morning just because they wake up my brain, because I am not a morning person, and they really wake up my brain, and I listen to them every morning. It helps if you like to track your progress in whatever way you want, because then you're seeing results. Sometimes we feel results in our measurements or our clothes size, but you can see results on a calendar or however you track it. And then reward yourself however you want to. Non-food rewards, of course, are preferred. Habit stacking is one thing that James Clear talks about. It always works. I've never seen it not work. Habit stacking is where if you want to get into a routine, or if you want to remember something, pair it with something else. So clients that start on medication, I'll say, and they say, I can't remember to take it. It's new. It's just too new. I'll say, okay, put your pills by your toothbrush, because you brush your teeth every day. So when you see your toothbrush, you see your pills, and that's called habit stacking. Next slide, April. And here's a couple of suggestions. This is a menu. I don't do most of these, just so you know. I do a lot of routine. I have a morning routine and evening routine, but these are just ideas that you can put in your routine. And just so you know, my routine starts because morning every day, I resurrect in the morning. It's just so hard for me. It doesn't matter how much sleep I got, I resurrect in the morning. So I never snooze my alarm when it goes off. I don't give myself the option, and I sit up on the side of my bed. And then my routine starts when I turn on the light, because that'll stop the production of melatonin, and off I go. And I have a routine that takes about 10 minutes. And then I'm ready for my day. And then I have a night routine because I want to check in with myself and see how I did that day, because I get that feedback loop. And that feedback loop is super important for me to learn and to stay on track and to keep on track on my routine. So that is what I have. Any comments or questions, April?
Just say that everyone is feeling very validated and heard in the comment section, especially with the caretaker role that we all seem to feel. A lot of people are saying they're going to start taking some me time. And do you have any advice, I guess, about how to start scheduling that into your day, I guess?
Yeah, the big one is, because we are caretakers, and that's our community. It's one of the reasons I love us, but it also gets in the way. We have to be true to ourselves. So we have to, just like we did to prepare for surgery and post-surgery, that remember how you carved out that time for you. You don't have to carve that much time out, but carve out enough time that you can ground yourself at the beginning of the day and ground yourself at the end of the day, and then stay true to yourself during the day. And that's a whole other, talk as to how to create those boundaries. But it's Steve Covey said that integrity is keeping the promises we make to ourselves, because nobody else knows about them. And so it doesn't have to be great loads of time, and we can't feel guilty. It wouldn't be the right or the fair or the truthful thing to do, to feel guilty about taking time for ourselves. Because how many times have you heard you got to put your own mask on before you can put the passenger next to you's mask on? That is not untrue. And so if we want to be the best caregivers that we can be, we have to really take a little time to ground ourselves and to keep ourselves healthy.
I have a question. How do you deal with, like, okay, I'm an emergency nurse, and so like caring for people, I have little kids and all of that. So how do you deal with like just the fatigue of it? Because like self-care to me seems like a lot of more work. Like I don't really have enough time, and then it just seems like more work, like just work, constantly putting out all this energy. So how do you deal with that feeling of like self-care is more taxing than just like what I'm doing?
Right. That's a really good question. I think that's probably the issue is it's learning to think of self-care as self-care and not overindulgence, and not one more thing on your list. It's the gas that you put in your car, because eventually you run out of gas. And so self-care is just putting enough gas in your car to get through the day. And if we don't put the gas in the car at the end of the day or the week or the month, or 2 years, some of us have really a lot of stamina, we are going to crash, or we're going to turn the key and nothing's going to happen. And so if you can see it as a way to fuel yourself so that you can do your job, and I don't mean your job, I mean your purpose, which is helping others and caring for others. If you see it as the way that I can get to caring for others, that's sustainable, then it's not one more thing on the list. It's the thing that gets the list done.
And I would also add that self-care, I'm not good at it either. I'm not sure exactly who said that, but 5 minutes is some days all that I can give myself, and I'm going to take it. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. I'm going to force myself to sit down, and I'm going to write in my gratitude journal. And that's if the only thing that I can do today. At least I'm stopping for a little bit and putting a little bit of gas in my tank. And then it will free up some headspace for me to think about where and when and how I'm going to carve out time in the future. So I know it can be overwhelming. Self-care is a real big, it's very popular. It's a popular topic at the moment, and it's absolutely necessary and needed. But just thinking about small ways that we can start, I think can be very, very powerful.
And it's not overindulgence. It's just making it so you have enough to give other people.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Somebody said this meeting is an example. You guys are spot on.
It is. Totally is. Yeah. You guys rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have 2 more presenters, and we of course are already running over a little bit over time. If you have more questions for Wendy, go ahead and write them down. If Wendy, could you stay for a little bit when we're finished, or do you need to?
Sure.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'm going to do a very teacher thing right now. I'd like us all to pause for 15 seconds. And I want us to think about what is most resonating in our brains right now from Wendy. And I encourage you to physically write it down or go ahead and type it in the chat, but take 15 seconds of self-care and let's process. Awesome, you guys. Thank you so very much. It's hard to just sit, isn't it, with our thoughts for 15 short seconds, but I can see the chat is on fire, you guys. Amazing. All right, are we ready to switch gears? Miss Kristin Willard is up next, and I am so excited.
All right, I am excited too. Can you
Kristin.
see me okay?
I am going, So do you want me to stop sharing the presentation so they can just see you, or do you want to just continue with the presentation? And then everybody, if you go to participants and you change your view to like gallery or speaker view, then Kristin's face you will see Kristin's face as we have the presentation. So
yeah, can you see me when I talk right now?
I can.
Okay, awesome. I can't see myself for some reason, so I don't really know where I am on the page. Hopefully my background is, you know, nothing that you don't want to see in there. Can I just tell you, I am so happy I came after Wendy. That was an amazing talk, Wendy. I've never met you before, but that was so inspirational. And it was a great interlude for what I'm talking about, because I don't know if you can see this on the screen. Huge believer in the Atomic Habits. That has, I can't recommend this book enough. And so now that you introduced the concept, I'm definitely going to talk about that with our meal prepping today. Willpower, I saw the exact one you talked about, but with willpower. And then I just got this in the mail yesterday, actually, from Amazon. It's like the neuroscience of changing your brain. So I thought I was like, oh, she hit all those notes for me. So that was really exciting to hear. So I'm a bariatric dietitian. Thank you so much, April and Jason, for having me on this. This is fantastic. Like what an awesome resource to be providing to the community. I've been a dietitian now for the last 10 years, but I've been specifically working within the bariatric community for the last 5. So I have, you may have known me from Instagram, Bariatric Meal Prep. I do offer like different pictures of what different portion sizes look like, or what different protein sources are, and definitely try to give you some weight loss surgery tips as well. And just like the Atomic Habits, my philosophy is progress over perfection. So that's exactly what this book is about. So, you know, it's really important to, you know, I think a lot of times after weight loss surgery, we see how we want to be in 2 years, 5 years down the line. But that does take time, and that does take consistent showing up for yourself. And it may not always be, you know, a linear process. Sometimes it kind of goes up and down. So just to be patient with yourself. So going back to what Wendy talked about with that circle, I love that circle, the identity, and then the process and the outcome. I just wanted to share with you a quick story on that I've experienced. I was I was facilitating a support group in my local area one time. And there was a woman that spoke, and she said that she had this huge transformation she realized, because she was about a year after surgery, and she lost around 100 pounds, and she was feeling good. And she was in her office, and there was a new coworker that came. And she, you know, they were doing their work, and the coworker, there was donuts that were there. And the coworker asked her, "Hey, do you want some of these donuts?" And she said, "No, thank you." And the lady said to her, she's, "Oh, you're one of those healthy people." And she kind of said it in a snarky tone. And she realized she wanted to tell her whole story of having weight loss surgery and whatnot. But then she realized, I am that healthy person. Yes, that is who I am. And so she just had a huge identity shift. And so that is all, absolutely what Wendy said, that is all part of the process, is really recognizing, you know, identifying with who you want to be and starting to use those words for yourself. And what's great is if you look at that outer circle, one of those processes can be meal prep, that can be meal planning. It's not for everyone, but it definitely can be a really helpful process, because that can give you more time to be able to have time with your kids, or have, you know, go for a walk after work, or come to these meetings. So it can give you that space. If done in a simple way, it can give you that space to be able to provide you with that self-care later. And also it is a form of self-care. So I think that's important to note as well. And then that's going to give you that outcome. So meal prep, you know, can help you, give you more time. It can help you with weight loss. It can help you stay on track. So it's definitely can be a useful tool moving forward. Now, I like to define, so meal prep can be looked at, you know, like all those pretty beautiful pictures on Pinterest of like your entire meals planned for like the whole week, all done, ready to come out. And that looks great. And I love that. And if it's something that you can do, you know, go for it. But I don't feel like that's necessarily a reality for everyone. As someone mentioned earlier, you know, sometimes like you want self-care to be build you up and not be like one more thing on your to-do list. That's kind of how meal prep is. Like, you don't want it to necessarily add to your stress. You want it to you want it to decrease your stress. So for you, you know, meal prep for you may be just planning out your meals and making sure that you have the ingredients in your fridge to be able to prepare the meals that you want to do. So just taking like that 20 minutes a week. Meal prep for you may be just cutting up your vegetables and making sure that's ready. Meal prep for you may be identifying like what meal is your the hardest for you to get in, like breakfast, you know, in the morning, and then having that ready to go. So it's really situational. And I think it's really important to know that there is no one style and there is no standard definition of even meal prep. So you get to define what meal prep is for you. So today I wanted to give you, I see the thumbs up from April. You're like the only one I can see on the screen. So for you, I wanted to give you some 4 steps. So these are simple. I kept this pretty short because I wanted to leave some room for questions or kind of tangents that I've gone on a little bit as well. So first, as you know, protein is going to be one of the most important things after surgery. So this is what people don't realize is that it can be used to help keep your metabolism elevated after surgery. So after surgery, you are going to be losing muscle mass. So you're not only losing fat when you're losing that weight, you're also losing muscle mass. So making sure that you're getting adequate protein is going to help you keep your muscle mass, which essentially is going to let you have a higher metabolism in the long run. So having that protein on board is great. And then you also want to make sure that you have that protein on. That's the important part when you're early on in the surgery, because you are losing that rapid weight, but protein's also really important as you're 2, 3, 5, years out, because that's the tool to help you feel satisfied with your meals. So first, you really want to identify like what your protein source is going to be. So yes, I saw someone put tofu on there too. So you can have chicken, turkey, salmon, steak if you're able to tolerate it, beans. Now, a rule of thumb, what I've noticed is if you take a pound of meat, you're roughly going to be able to get, once it's all cooked, you're going to be able to get 4 3-ounce portions from that. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb, is just, for every pound, you can probably get 4 meals out of bariatric serving meals out of if you have 1 pound of meat. Now, tofu can be a little bit different. It isn't necessarily as like half a cup isn't as dense. It's around like 6 grams of protein, 7 grams of protein, depending on how much you get the liquid out. So it's not as dense, but sometimes it doesn't make you feel as full, so you can eat more of it to be able to meet your protein needs. So you want to start with your protein.
And Kristin, there was a great question in the chat. Sorry, excuse me. Alice asked, does eating more protein before surgery help? And I think what she's asking is, does it kind of help you prepare or help you find more success after surgery if you kind of learn to incorporate more protein before?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in starting the process before surgery. Now, you can't expect your portion sizes to be how they are after surgery necessarily in relation to all the different components of the meal. But definitely that's one of my top things to recommend, is making sure that you're getting at least 3 to 4 ounces of protein beforehand. This is going to help you start getting into that. You're already going to be starting to build those habits. So, the longer that you're used to doing this process, the easier it's going to be in the long run. 2, it's going to, some surgery centers do want you to have some weight loss beforehand. So having that protein first is going to help you start feeling fuller faster. So you may not need to incorporate, may not need to consume the entire meal, depending on what your hunger levels are for. So yeah, I'm definitely a big proponent there. There is some research to support that if you do have weight loss before surgery and you started that process, that you can have a better outcome afterwards. I think that's good to know, but I also want people to know that just because you didn't have weight loss before surgery doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful after surgery. So I do see both sides, but that's just something to note that that can be helpful for there. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, sorry, Kristin. Yeah, I was going to say, just getting in the habit of making protein the foundation of your meal before surgery is a habit that you're absolutely going to need after surgery. So I think the sooner we can start that, the better. And her 4-step process is the perfect way to do that.
Thank you. I think we can go to the next slide unless we had any other questions about protein. So next step 2, you're going to be adding your cooked vegetables. So, I think before surgery, we're so accustomed to eating your vegetables first, and vegetables are always really important, and they still are. And I'm definitely not someone that, doesn't want you to have vegetables. The protein is still going to be your number one thing that you need to have first, and then you're going to go to the vegetables. So roughly it depends on where you are after surgery, but once you reach that year to 2 years after surgery, you're going to be at around a third of a cup to half a cup portions, roughly. So these are just some options. I like the dark leafy greens and the cruciferous vegetables the most. I feel like they have like the biggest health benefits. So I always recommend, so that would be like your cauliflower, your broccoli, your kale, your Brussels sprouts. Those are all going to be really high nutrient dense vegetables for you. So really best bang for your buck, in regards to really nutrient dense, since you're not able to have a large amount. So I always aim for like 1 meals to be those a day. Or, I'm sorry, 1 meal with those vegetables a day is recommended. Now you may not be here, and that's totally okay. Like you may still be in the puree diet and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even handle a third of a cup at a time, and you want me to get a third of vegetables. It really depends. So, another way to look at this is you want to have like about 30% of your meal, 30 to 25% of your meal to be the vegetable, depending on where you are after surgery. So I like to put that roasted vegetables are the easiest. Like something that's really easy to do is just to put your vegetables and your protein in one of those 1-pan meals, and then make them all at once, and then you can divvy it up afterwards. That can be a really easy way to be able to make your meal prep as simple as possible. Soups are another option that you can do. Yep. So can we move? Any questions on vegetables? Does anyone have any questions on vegetables?
Leah posted a question, and I think it basically comes down to, right, sometimes when we're so fresh out of surgery, we might be 4, 5, 6 weeks, and we're back, we're to the point where we can eat whole food, but a lot of us find that we start with our protein and then we have no room for vegetables later on. So I think it's important that, right, that we just know that that's okay. You will get to the point where you can eat more, at a single sitting. And I think it's also just important to know, like,
hello?
Sorry, I don't think that was meant. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
What I was going to say is that it's important to know that, like, if you're ready to start getting your vegetables in, but you have a meal and it's just protein and that's all that you can do, then at your next meal, right, really be planning out your protein so that at your next meal you can have some vegetables with some protein, right? And then you're just always thinking ahead to that next meal, because there is a way that you can kind of rotate things in and out and hit all of your protein goals and also get in your veggies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another good point, April. Another thing that can you guys hear me okay? I feel like I'm having double talking. Okay, cool. So another way to look at it is you want to do, like, roughly in those early stages, a lot of surgery centers, and once again, this isn't personal medical advice, but a lot of surgery centers will say 75% of your meal should be protein and 25% of your meal should be vegetable. So you can take, one way to look at that is take 3 bites of protein, 1 bite of vegetable, 3 bites of protein, 1 bite of vegetable. And of course, as time goes on, you may not be counting every single bite, but like that's just like a good baseline to start off of and starting to get into that routine. Now, if you're someone that is, farther out from surgery and you're able to identify, or you're able to incorporate a variety of different foods, then a lot of people have I think I mentioned this on the podcast, the 3-2-1 way of eating. So it's 3 bites of protein, 2 bites of vegetables, 1 bite of your starch. So you're getting a well-rounded, you don't necessarily feel like you're, only having protein. You're able to get a variety of different sources, different foods on your plate. So hopefully that was helpful. And then I think we skipped step 3. Step 3.
Oh, sorry, Kristin.
Oh, that's okay. Hopefully it's on.
I don't see a 3.
Oh no. I might have, okay, maybe, okay. So I can't, it's no big deal. I just don't have the picture with it. I can still talk about it. So step 3, so step 1 was adding the protein, identify your protein. Step 2 was identifying your non-starchy vegetable. And step 3 is going to be incorporating your smart carb. So your smart carb is roughly going to be about 2 to 4 tablespoons of a carbohydrate, like at each meal. So ones that I like, if you are able to if you want it to be more of a grain, the quinoa is definitely one of my top choices for a higher protein, like starch carbohydrate. Beans, they can be a source of protein, but they can be your starch. So if you are an omnivore, if you are eating meats and you are eating plant-based proteins, I always encourage that your beans be around more of a fourth of a cup if you have another protein source at the meal. But if you aren't having a protein source of the meal, then those beans can easily go up to a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup. So that really depends depending on what your personal preference is. So sweet potatoes, quinoa, fruit, those are my favorite ones to be incorporating as your carbohydrate. So like I said, everyone's going to be a little bit different, but around 2 to 4 tablespoons at each meal for getting your carbohydrates in. So you can see in the picture, that is a quinoa that I used. So you have the chicken that we added, the roasted tomatoes, and then you added quinoa for a meal. Now, step 4, that's really this is where we're going to add the flavoring. This is really where what helps keep you meal prepping in the long term, because you can always be switching up your flavors. So for here, I have more of an Italian flavor. So I added the balsamic vinaigrette and the mozzarella, kind of more for flavoring, and the basil. So those can be your flavors for the meal. Now, if you wanted like more of like a Mexican flavor, you could add like chili powder or cumin with maybe I think it's pronounced cojilla cheese. So that, you can add different flavorings and you can switch it up. So you could, prepare, 1 pound of the shredded chicken and then add different flavorings to it for each meal, depending on what you want. So you don't necessarily feel like you're eating the same thing. You can also add like different marinades to the meat, garlic, ginger, soy sauce. I know it was a really popular one. Was it you, April, that was talking about soy sauce? I feel like, yeah, so I already even had this on the slide, but soy sauce can be an option to add up the flavoring as well. And it's actually is lower sodium than adding salt. But I don't really have a problem with salt. That's a whole nother topic. Or you can do like a flavored cheese. So I like more of like the potent cheeses, like a feta or a goat cheese, because you do get a lot of flavor without necessarily having to add like a lot of cheese to it. And you're able to get it. So it's a simple 4 steps. So when we look at meal planning, I think it's really looked at as, I got to get all these recipes. But I really encourage, like, if you're just starting off, like, look at your look at the more of like, for lack of a better word, the macros first. What are your macros going to be for that? So plan them in that way. So what are my proteins going to be for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? And then just keep it simple. What are my vegetables going to be for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? And then what are my flavorings going to be? And then breaking it down that way, focusing on, as we brought up habit stacking, I was super glad to hear Wendy introduce that concept too. So, with meal prep, a lot of times it can be like, okay, when am I going to find the time to do that? So something else that, the Atomic Habit book talks about is there's like 4 different laws, I believe he goes over. And one of those is to make it attractive. So what's going to make meal prep attractive to you? Is that maybe putting on like your favorite show from Netflix, while you're meal prepping? Is that getting in the kitchen with your kids and having that time, that one-on-one time with your kids? So what way is it going to make it attractive for you? You can also give yourself rewards along the way. So, okay, after a month of meal prepping, I'm going to buy that really cool, spiralizer. I'm going to buy that, those meal prep containers. Like, give yourself rewards as you go can be another way for it as well. But as far as the habit stacking, really it does help to plan to another form of habit stacking is, as she said, to stack it on top of something that you're already doing. So it could be like, okay, every Sunday when my husband has the football game on, I'm going to be doing my meal prepping. Or, every Wednesday, after I come home from work, I'm going to do my meal planning. So really, wherever fits for you, but it helps to keep it at the same spot, because it's going to start helping build those pathways that your brain's just automatically going to go there when you're thinking, or when that previous action happened, your brain goes to the next one. Like, you could probably already look at your routine during the day and notice like how one routine just kind of leads into another one and then another one. It's just a natural flow of things. And so adding meal prep, if you just put it into between 2 things that you consistently do, a lot of times your brain's going to start remembering to do it on that. And, be flexible with yourself and recognize that it's okay to not be perfect and not to do it every single week. You know, like April's in Washington right now. I don't know if you're going to have the time to do, you know, and that's okay. Like maybe reschedule it for yourself another time throughout the week to be like, okay, you know, I'm going to meal plan on this day, and having some backups. Like it's totally okay if you have some, you know, backup. There's a lot of good frozen food options nowadays. You know, it's okay to have some of those in the fridge for those days that you didn't plan. Like have it plan A of meal prepping, and then have your backup plan, being intentional with it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that was some tips.
Oh yeah, I've got 2 questions from the chat that people have asked, and I will just say what's been so powerful for me is I pick one protein for the week. So I'm going to meal prep a block of tofu 4 different ways using different spices and using your 4-step process. That's been a huge help. So if you're just wondering like, where the heck do I start? Go to Costco, go to Sam's Club, buy a rotisserie chicken, separate it all out, put your protein in 4 or 5 different containers, and then get creative with your seasoning. Do garlic and herb, do Italian, do Mexican, do Middle Eastern. You can really mix it up that way, and I think that's a very easy and efficient way that you can just try meal prepping if you've never tried it before. So that was my suggestion. And then Kristin, the 2 questions for the chat. People wanted to know what would be your best bean recommendation, and then what are your favorite meal prep containers?
Yeah. So as far as the bean recommendation, any of them, like as long as they don't have any of the extra sauces or anything, I think they're fine. So pinto beans, black beans, kidney beans, garbanzo beans, like they're all, I mean, they have like slight micronutrient differences, but I think that it's just, it's too nitpicky to really pick a favorite. I think they're all really good. So whichever one you like the most and the one that is easiest for you to incorporate, go for that. For me personally, black beans and chickpeas, and kidney beans. I really like beans. Those are probably the ones that I use the most, depending on my meals. So if I'm doing like more of like a Mediterranean, I typically, and I want those flavors that we were talking about, I would typically use more chickpeas. If I was doing more like the Mexican or Latin American dish, it'd probably be like the black beans. And then I think like chilies, like vegetarian chilies, or, turkey or ground turkey or grass-fed beef chilies. I think those are, I do those a lot as well, because I'm one of those people that like to have like a big pot and then I use it throughout the week for lunches or whatnot. That's an easy way that I like to do it. So kidney beans are usually in that.
Awesome.
So hopefully that answers your question.
I think so, yeah.
One thing though, I don't know how much my time is. Is it really 11 o'clock? No.
Yes. That's how
oh my goodness,
conversations are. I know.
Okay. All right. So so that's my advice on beans. Any of them work.
Favorite glass container for meal prep?
Yeah, so that's, gosh, I can't remember the brand. I got mine. I have a whole variety. I think it really depends. And I have an actual blog post if you do want to read it. And I have my specific brands on that one. But so bariatric-friendly.com, I think it's on one of the first pages for meal prep containers, 1 or 2 pages back in the blog. It really depends on what your goals are, right? So like, and it depends on where you are, like how far out you are. Like some people like to do, there's like those little like tin ones, and those are nice for more like cold foods that aren't necessarily going to spill, but you don't want to heat it up. So if you're having cold food, you don't want to be putting it into like a metal container because you can't put it in the microwave. As far as like glass ones, I think it's Snapware is the one that I have, but I have another brand as well. Snapware is the ones that I started with, and those are the ones I got at Costco, and it was like a whole set, and those are really nice. For weight loss surgery, typically you want like a 2-cup container. You're not going to be eating those full 2 cups fully, but like it just gives you space, like you don't want to just like falling all over you when you open it up. So it gives you space by having those 2-cup containers. It's personal preference whether to get the dividers or not. And then mason jars are really nice for like really small things as well. So you can put like, you can do like a hummus dipper in there, or and they're cheap too, which is why I really like the mason jars. And you can do more of those mason jar salads with that.
So, and I do see there is one more question, and I'll ask you quickly, but I will let all of you guys know when the event is over, I'm going to be sending you a link to this PowerPoint, a link to the video, and I will also send you a direct link to Kristin's blog post for her glass containers.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
So we'll have all those resources there. Okay, so then there is one more question, Kristin, and I think a lot of us are kind of wondering about this. The greens supplement seems to be big in the community again, right? Okay. So the powdered greens, what are your thoughts on green supplements? Are they worth it? Are they nutritious?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know the specific ones, so I'll have to look into that. My philosophy as a dietitian is food first as much as possible. I think that's going to help you feel fuller and more satisfied. And then there's just the way that supplements or that the food works, the way that they work, the way that they're absorbed, I just feel like are better than, well, not necessarily better, but they're more synergistic, I want to say, than necessarily in the supplements. I'm not against them. I think that especially if you're not getting your vegetables anywhere else, then I'd rather you get it someplace than nowhere at all. So I think it can fit in.
Okay, excellent.
But I prefer food first. Food first is always, like I said, food first is my preference.
I'm sensing this would be an excellent struggle bus episode, Kristin. If you'd like to join us to talk about green supplements, I think that's a hot topic. Yeah, and you guys, I will be sending out the link to whatever email address you registered for this event with. So it'll just go out the same way that you registered. Okay, there was a lot.
Sorry, I took up so much time. I thought I was barely going to make the 15 minutes. So, okay.
Dude, that was perfect. That was wonderful. I want to do the exact same thing that we did with Wendy. She presented a ton of great information, you guys. So let's, again, take 15 quick seconds and reflect on something that an aha or a revelation or something that you want to try based on what Kristin shared with us. Awesome. So much good stuff in the chat, you guys. Kristin, thank you so very much. Can you, Kristin, do you need to hop off right now, or can you stay on for a little bit after the presentation if people still want to hang out?
Yeah, unfortunately I can't. My husband, he's watching my kids. I'm like, I'm only going to be an hour. So I'm so sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. We will connect with you later, but thank you so very much.
But feel free, I answer all my DMs. So if people ever have any questions, sometimes it may take me a day or two to get back to you, but send me some DMs, bariatric.meal.prep on Instagram, or my website. It's fine too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristin. We very much appreciate your time and all of your wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Bye, you guys.
Right. Bye. All right, guys. Last and certainly not least, Miss Maddie.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited. So
I can't wait. Dude, your Carb Quick recipe changed my life. So everybody's about to get their minds blown.
Well, I'm ready to share some tips and tricks and break down some recipes and how I came about all of this and how I just decided to start tearing apart recipes and sharing them with the world. So
awesome. We are here for that.
Okay. So I am first and foremost, I guess, a registered nurse. I'm a hospice nurse and I'm a bariatric blogger and influencer. And I always say that I never take the place of a dietitian like Kristin. So my recipes are great to be used in conjunction with a meal plan. They're never to take the place of a meal plan. So that is like why on purpose, I don't include the macros right now. If I ever one day release like an ebook or a cookbook, I will. But I know we had talked before on the podcast episode, I have a very long history of disordered eating. And so now being 3.5 years out, I had surgery in June of 2017. I lost 180 pounds and I found my happy weight. I've kept off 170 pounds. And so I eat mindfully and intuitively, and I have a blog post on that. So I'm a blogger and I love to I'm pretty much, I would say, known for in the community cooking and making bariatric friendly recipes. So yes, I love to share how I've made the best of this amazing tool. And I love to share real raw life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and downs, the fails. Even on some of my highlights on Instagram, I have like fails of like, I cook right along with you and I show you like how some of my recipes have turned out not good. So that
which is, I swear to God, it's the best part, because it just lets everybody know that we're all human and failure is not a bad thing. It just means that we're trying to learn something new.
Yeah, especially this year. This is the year of like unfilteredness and just bringing you all along with me for just the craziness. So, so that is a little bit about me. So you can go to the next slide. So my biggest thing is transforming your favorite recipes to fit a post-op bariatric diet really does not have to be super difficult. And I was somebody who just like rolled through the drive-through, and I was a fast food junkie. I mean, my favorite foods were appetizers, and I would just roll through McDonald's, Wendy, sometimes 2 on my way to work as a nurse. That's when I really put on the bulk of like my last 100 pounds. And so it's all about just being creative. So I knew that I needed to really take up like a love for cooking, and just, I knew that if I wanted to succeed, that I needed to get those foods and still have them and really make them tasty. So if you break down your meal prep in just an hour or even like a half hour a couple times a week, it can really help. So I promise it's not rocket science. So I'm going to show you a few ingredients that I always have on hand. And some of these were ones that like I didn't even know about. So the first one, April loves it. It is Carb Quick. So I stumbled upon this probably 2 years ago. And Carb Quick is an alternative to flour, and it is a baking and biscuit mix. So it can be used to make biscuits, pancakes, waffles, sausage biscuits and gravy, pizza crust, anything that you would use Bisquick for. So I actually, on my website, I have a full website that was just redone, and I have a lot of recipes using Carb Quick, and I have actually on my website, I have a weekly newsletter that goes out that I just decided to include videos with my weekly workouts. And so I also have weekly recipes that go out, and tomorrow, a little sneak peek, is a recipe featuring Carb Quick, and I sent April a picture of it yesterday. It is so good. So I use this in many recipes on my website. And the only thing about it is April had asked too if it has to be used like 1-to-1 for flour. Sometimes you need a little bit more liquid. So Carb Quick is amazing. Greek yogurt is a great alternative for recipes as well. I know that's like a common one people know about, but you can use it for mayo and sour cream. You can use it like as toppings, and it's also packed with protein. So don't sleep on Greek yogurt. You just have to make sure that you're getting the least amount of sugar Greek yogurt, because sometimes it can, they can have like the flavored ones as well. The other thing that I keep on hand, and this was one, you can go to the next slide, this is crazy. And I found this sugar-free honey. So I don't know too, I had dumping syndrome after I had regular honey. And so I found this they have it on Amazon and Walmart. It does have a lot of sugar alcohols in it. It has mannitol and sorbitol. So I always recommend trying a little bit before you put a lot. But I can't tolerate regular honey. So I found this. I use it sparingly, but it is so, so good. And I have a recipe that I'm going to show you in a minute that is no-bake protein bars. And I use this too. So if anybody has a hard time with regular honey, you can try this. So it's been a great alternative to me because I really, really like honey, and it's a great alternative. But I always say to try a little bit before you use a lot, because it can make you a little gassy, just like with with some sugar substitutes. And then sugar substitutes is a huge one for us in this community. My favorite is Splenda. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you know that I love Splenda. There's a lot of Splenda haters, but I love it. But if you have never heard of Swerve, they have a brown sugar, and they also have a powdered sugar that's like a confectioner sugar, and it is so amazing to cook with and bake with. So that these two are always in my kitchen. They also have a regular, like a Splenda type as well. So I love Swerve. It is amazing. And then I have tons of these in my refrigerator, these low carb wraps, and I cook with these all the time. These have a high amount of fiber, a low amount of net carbs. I use these in place of bread. I have just recently, in my recipe last week, I use these in place of lasagna noodles. So I make egg bites with these and use these as like the little liner that goes in like the cupcake or muffin tin. And I have a recipe on my website for chicken pot pie bites and use these as the crust. I use these for everything. They also have a smaller version that are like the street tacos. I'm sure you guys have probably seen those, that are like amazing as well. The macros on these are just so amazing. And you can get so creative with these. You can use these for everything. Aldi's also has I know some people in the US are like, what's Aldi's? But Aldi's has a version. They also have a little bit of a cheaper version at different stores, but just look for like the ones that have the lower carbs and have the higher amount of fiber, and it'll keep you fuller longer. And then I love combining, I get really creative with coconut and almond flour. I love combining these to make like the perfect coating for breaded foods in the air fryer. So these are staple items that I have on hand all the time. I could have probably went on and on with different staple items. And I'm working on a blog post in the next couple weeks that kind of highlights all of these. So, does anyone have any questions on those ingredients?
People were just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know, this is amazing, right? All of this kind of good stuff is coming in. This is perfect.
Okay.
Someone did ask, how soon after surgery would you recommend following your recipes? I'm only 6 months and still have to pay attention to macros.
So what I always tell people too, when they ask, some people will message me and say, you know, you don't include the macros or whatever. What you can do is on MyFitnessPal, you can easily plug in the ingredients. And another thing too with tracking is sometimes it's hard because the variations of like, you'll notice my recipe, and I always shoot for super family friendly and cost effective, especially right now with, you'll notice I use a lot of canned stuff. You can always use fresh stuff, but I really try and shoot for affordable, easy, and bariatric friendly. You can always plug in my recipes into whatever you're using to track and figure out the macros. It really doesn't take too long. So I always say too, if there's an ingredient in there that you think might bother you, like corn, you can always just omit it. But I would say 6 months post-op, you should be able to try most of the things. If there's any ingredient in there that you think might bother you, like the honey, or you can use something else. But sometimes it really is just like a trial and error. And if you're working with a dietitian, you can always take that recipe to them and say, do you think I would be able to try this? That's kind of what I would recommend. But I would you always kind of have to do what is best for you and just kind of trial and error. Like I always say, you know, I never want to say like, oh, it'd be great for you, you know, because everyone's so different. I still sometimes have a hard time with yogurts, and sometimes with even like the Fairlife milk, I have a hard time with that. And I'm 3.5 years post-op. So all of our bellies are so different. I've heard, I used MyFitnessPal, and then I've seen a lot of people using Bariatastic to track, and those are really good options that you can like plug different things of my recipes in it and then split it into how many servings. A lot of times too, my recipes make a large amount, and I live with my parents, and so I always will like give them some, and the neighbors that live next door, I'll take them over dinner. So, okay. Want to dissect a recipe and see kind of how I just found this one on Pinterest and I was like, I need to try and make this. So this is a loaded mashed potato casserole recipe. It looks really good, but let's look at some substitutions we can make. I would first substitute for the 5 Russell potatoes. I would look at this and say, let's put half the potatoes and half cauliflower. So when I'm doing cauliflower and for potatoes, I would put it in the food processor. It's a great alternative to potatoes. And I also have a great cauliflower mash recipe on my website that I actually am going to show in a second too. For the cream cheese, I use Neufchâtel cream cheese. It's a little less fat and a little more protein. You can use Greek yogurt in place of the sour cream. And if you're really watching fat content, you can substitute turkey bacon for regular bacon. And you can always use reduced fat shredded cheese. So those are just some of the substitutions that I would look at when I'm looking at this recipe. So that's just a little bit of how I would dissect it. So then going on to the next one, here is how I previously made a bariatric friendly recipe. So mini chicken pot pie bites. I love chicken pot pie. So when I'm looking at a recipe, I make sure that I'm not taking the protein out, since that's so important for us after bariatric surgery. Then I look at how I can decrease the carb content. So low carb wraps are such a good addition, and they're a great source of fiber. So I use them for so many things. So I thought like, oh, instead of, the Pillsbury pie crust, I could use my low carb wraps. And they're really not too thin. You could double them if you want, but I use them to line the muffin tin and then use the mixture. And I just used canned chicken, but you could use rotisserie chicken. And then I just added mixed vegetables and added cream of chicken soup and made my own little mini chicken pot pie bites. And you just kind of have to get creative. Sometimes you'll have fails. Sometimes you'll have wins, and sometimes you're like, oh, I need to add a little more salt, a little more this, a little more that. But that's kind of just how I will find a recipe and just like tear it apart. So that's kind of how I made that recipe.
Well, and I think what's so powerful about this is that, right, it's not, because after surgery, I think it's important that we know that, right, we have to work to make food not contraband, but we have to look for ways to make food healthy and enjoyable for us. And if we're really craving to do it in a smart way, that's like a double win, right? Because food is not contraband, but for me at, in this moment. So seeing these side by side, it's such a wonderful, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just so helpful, so helpful.
Yeah. And these are great. I've even froze these before, and then I will just like take them in my lunch and thaw them out. They're of course better fresh. Everything's better fresh. But you can freeze them. I make egg bites like this and use the lining as instead of, I love having like a little lining for my egg bites, and freeze them and take them to work. And so it's just like, I just have to get creative. So, and then these are 3 recipes that oops, it won't go to the next one here. So low carb pita chips. I love chips. Me and Natalie have talked about this before. I love savory, salty things. So all I did was took the carb balanced tortillas and cut them up and put some salt on them, Pam spray, and popped them in the oven. And then I made some spinach dip or hummus and put them in a baggie and took them to work in my lunch. And they are like just a wonderful alternative to pita chips, and they're high protein and high fiber, and they're wonderful. The no-bake protein bars have a lot of healthy swaps. So I used the sugar-free honey that I had referenced above. And I also used Devotion protein powder, the protein powder that I use. I put some oats and some peanut butter. If you're really watching fat, you could use the PB2 powder peanut butter if you're like newly post-op, and sugar-free chocolate chips. I use the Chalk Zero brand, but they have some, even like Hershey's has some sugar-free chocolate chips. But this is a super simple recipe that just took a little time for me to come up with. And it's a really good grab and go option for me to eat at work. And it's a little bit more cost effective if you are not able to buy, like the protein bars that are sometimes $2 and $3 a bar. So I made a big pan of them and just cut them up and had them ready for me for work. And then cauliflower mash. So I love this. This is a wonderful alternative to mashed potatoes. And so it's really simple, and it's just, you could substitute Greek yogurt in here to add a little bit more protein. Sometimes my stomach doesn't settle great with Greek yogurt. So I used cream cheese and a little bit of milk and some cauliflower, and used the food processor. And the cream cheese helps to make it so thick and creamy, and salt and pepper, and it's just a great alternative. So it's all about just being super creative, like just getting so creative. So, and sometimes I get in ruts too of like, I don't know what to cook. And that's why I'm always like, you guys can send me stuff that you guys are craving. So to sum it all up, you just have to get creative, and it's really simple. The biggest thing is I try and have a plan when I'm going to the grocery store. I try and stick with that plan. And I also always try and have those key ingredients on hand at home. That is so important with COVID and with all of this going on. Especially, I find that the most stressful periods for me are when I'm at work as a nurse. And with me being a hospice nurse, we have a kitchen that has cookies and different things in it. So I always try and have my plan and my lunch prepared for work. So having the key ingredients at home makes it so if I'm really tired, when I'm working as a nurse, that I, have those ingredients. If I don't feel like going to the store, I can prepare it. And then when I'm at work, I have that on hand. And so I have, all of those ingredients that I can prepare something for work the next day and I don't have an excuse. So, and don't get me wrong, there's some days where I grab a cookie and I go ahead and, have treats and stuff. But so yeah, it doesn't have to be rocket science. You can make it easier, but I always had to have a plan. So that's kind of how I break down some of my recipes and make it a little bit easier. And I do have like over 50 on my website that are available that you can print and download and save. And so yeah.
If you guys have not checked out Maddie's website, you absolutely, something you should absolutely do today. Her recipes are amazing. She has so many wonderful and insightful ideas that you were just, I never thought of, like for swaps. I mean, her recipes, you guys, she worked so hard to make sure that they were easy to print out, that they didn't take a lot of ink. And as we talked about with her in our podcast episode, she worked so hard to also write her recipes so that they're accessible for anybody, right? Food scarcity, access to grocery stores and ingredients can be hard depending on where we live. And she worked so hard to make sure that when she's developing a recipe, she's thinking about all of us, no matter where we live, what we have in our pantries, or what we have access to. It's a wonderful way of helping us find some joy and connection with food again after our procedures. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
My favorite labor of love during 2020. It was just what I needed to be doing during like everything going on. I put so much of my heart in it, and I absolutely loved it so much. It was just what my heart needed. So
Maddie, we do have a question in the chat. It says, if we are watching our carbs, what do you recommend for an oat swap? Or do you have an oat swap?
You know what? I don't eat a lot of oats.
And I talked with actually Kristin about this because I love overnight oats. And, oats it's a nutritious food that is very well-rounded when it comes to, just its macros. And I think it's just, it's one of those foods that if you want to enjoy it, then you're going to be eating low carb for the rest of the day, right? Or if oats is something that you enjoy, then just your rest of your meals that day or that week are going to be more of the low carb option. I think if it's something that you really want to incorporate, you can absolutely do so. You're just going to have to, think a little bit differently about,
I don't
about
like
it.
quinoa, and I don't really eat oats. So I'm so sorry. I could look into it and see if I can find. That's my homework.
Yep, I love it. I think that's
Post it on my
perfect. Yep, that's perfect homework. Oh my goodness, you guys. Okay, we are at 11:30. We are 30 minutes over our time, but I know we had some amazing information that was shared today. I'm going to ask us again to take 15 seconds for ourselves and either write down on a piece of paper or write in the chat what are our biggest takeaways from what Maddie shared with us today. Super good takeaways, you guys. My computer is going to power down. That's like how awesome this day has been. I got to go try to plug it in really quickly. Maddie, I hope you can see the chat. People are ecstatic.
I'm so glad.
You guys, this is just amazing. Let me, I absolutely wanted to share with you guys all of the resources for what was shared today. And like I said, I will be sending out this presentation. I'll be sending out our video recording. I would love to gather your feedback. I'm going to be sending you out a feedback link so that we can just make sure that we continue to run these in a way that is valuable and meaningful for you. If you would like to support all of our presenters today and support East to West, here's how you can do it. You guys, really the biggest thing is just to come and to share with people like why you think what we're doing is awesome. I'm sorry, this is so like unprofessional, but my computer is really about to shut down and I do not want that to happen. Hi guys. Ooh. You guys see it like walking through the condo. Those adorable little kids. I gotta plug in my computer somewhere. Oh, found it. Okay. Oh my gosh, crisis averted, you guys. Thank you so much. The biggest thing that I can just share with you guys is that we appreciate you coming to these events. We appreciate you supporting everything that we're doing. We appreciate all of our presenters who came today and helped support it and share this information. You can attend these events, let people know that these events happen by sharing them. You're helping us spread what we're doing here at East to West. You can become a patron of East to West now, which we are super excited about. You're going to get behind the scenes content and just extra thank yous from Jason and I and the people who are supporting us. Leave us feedback. That's a huge thing. You can subscribe, like all that kind of good stuff. So, and I can see in the chat, you guys are super, super thankful for today. We are thankful that you are here as well. I don't know if I missed anything. Natalie, Jason, did I miss anything? Another thank you to gather.
I think, I think just we really want to let everybody know how much we appreciate you guys being here. You guys are super thankful to us for having it, but we're super thankful to you guys for being here because we can't say this enough. Helping you guys is helping us tremendously because April and I not only are great accountability partners to each other, but now we have all of you guys helping to push us just as much as we're helping and pushing you guys. So, we're going to keep saying it just because that's how we feel about it, all the support from you guys and the well wishes and letting us know that we're doing exactly what April and I feel called to do. And that just lets us know to keep pushing and keep providing you guys with the resources. And we thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you guys, and every month at East to West, we kind of focus on a different theme. So our theme for January was New Year, new us, right? New year, new you. And in February, we're going to be focusing on our bodies and motions. We have 2 amazing guests lined up to just talk to us about what that means, what that could look like, and how we can incorporate motion into our everyday lives, just as a way to ensure that we live our longest, healthiest lives. So it's going to be a phenomenal meetup. That information will be coming out soon. The event isn't live yet, but it will be very, very shortly. So if you would like to attend that, we would love to have you because we just love doing this. So thank you so very much, you guys. I'm going to hang out for about another 10 or 15 minutes. If you would like to hang out and continue to ask questions, you're welcome to do so. But like, again, we just thank you so much for attending today. And we're super excited to just continue to support each other as we continue along this journey. Thank you so much, you guys. I'm going to